Dan Denos.
Good evening. Dan Denos, 169 Isabella Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening and greetings, Superintendent Anderson, Madam Chair, and all members of the Newark Public School Advisory Board. Before I continue, I would just like to say thank you for your commitment and dedication to the district and to the city. I understand and know how difficult the work can be at times, so I definitely appreciate, I'm sure we all appreciate everything you guys continue to do for the city, so thank you. I am a resident of Isabella Avenue and also the Deputy Director, Community Advocacy at iReform. iReform is an education advocacy organization whose commitment is to establish a community where parents, students, and community stakeholders partner together in one purpose: substantial and sustainable improvement of student outcomes for Newark school children. We are rooted in the belief that education transforms lives, families, and communities. It is a privilege that I do what I do. I love my job. I love the fact I'm able to speak to my fellow brothers and sisters within the community regarding education, but not just a regular education, but a world-class education, where we've become local citizens as well as global citizens. With that being said, on Wednesday, January 30th, 2013, iReform, in collaboration with the Seton Hall Law Center for Social Justice and Education Law Center, will host a community workshop to educate parents and community members on the legal rights of students with disabilities. The workshop will discuss support services that may be available and how parents can effectively advocate for their children with special needs. In the spirit of iReform's mission, our workshop will provide information on a process for identifying special education services for children who may require them, as well as the district's responsibility to evaluate and implement services for these students. By way of a settlement of a recent class action lawsuit, many Newark parents will have additional rights to compensatory special education services. Through this important collaboration, our organizations are trying to raise awareness to ensure that these critical services remain available in our community. You all are invited. The community workshop will be held at 13th Avenue School in Newark at 359 13th Avenue. Also, the next day, the 31st, Lyndon Brown will be hosting an event similar, providing families with their rights on advocating for students with special education services. This will be at 6 o'clock to 7 p.m. as well. Thank you all again, and together in service. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Leonard Anton Kirkell Wheeler. Thank you. Donald Jackson.
Donald Jackson, 79 Tracy Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, 07108. Yet again. Happy New Year to all. Happy New Year to everyone on the board.
Happy New Year.
New Year, Superintendent. And as I say that, since the new year, we were saddened with the death of a West Side student, yet again taken too soon. And tonight, I just want to talk about our journey for justice that's going to be happening on the 29th. For those of you who don't know, and I'm going to keep this part brief, I, along with Ms. Sharon Smith and our organization here, filed a complaint against Newark Public Schools concerning the discrimination against students, particularly African American and Latino, and particularly special needs, with the closing of the schools, and absolutely no community output. Because obviously no one in Newark is getting the message. Obviously no one in Newark who's elected or paid to do what they're supposed to do, is listening. So now, yet again, we have to take channels not only outside this city, but outside this state to our nation's capital. Today, this afternoon, I got a phone call about a disturbance that happened at Westside High School where several persons were assaulted. I'm still awaiting details, but Westside High School is out of control. Not only myself, but others for the past few months have come to this board and expressed to you the dire, stressful, and crazy situations at Westside High School. Fights. We had a student lost his life. When will this board get involved? Yet again, insanity. I believe I'm insane because I come to this mic every month, tell you the issues, tell you the problems. You guys look at me like I'm crazy. You say, thank you, next speaker, and it falls on dead ears. I'm beating a horse to death. Ariana, it's good to see you on this board. Hopefully we can do some positive things, not only this school year, but next school year. You know, those of you up on the board that's doing your thing, y'all know who you are, but those who aren't, know who you are. You know who I'm talking to. It's time for you to get proactive. We need to stop trying to worry about running for mayor. We need to stop trying to worry about running for senator. We need to stop trying to worry about running for president. And we need to take care of Newark Public Schools. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Every month, someone's coming to this board. Bruce Street, school for the deaf, no parent liaison. Are you serious? They had to get somebody from the charter school? Are we serious? Newark Public Schools, are we serious? This is a joke. This is a joke. It is unbelievable. This district is a joke, and it's unbelievable, and it's time for somebody to do some work. So yet again, I'll be in D.C. with Ms. Sharon Smith, a few other members from our organization, and a few organizations across the country to talk to the Department of Justice and the Department of Education to get some work done in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica Williamson. Donna Jackson. Ms. Jackson, before you start speaking, I just want to say something I said before you came in, and I know you don't like this kind of recognition, and you're going to say that you're just doing what you do, but I did basically just want to give you recognition for what was brought to my attention about the help that you gave to the family of Rahim Neal in their time of need. So, you know, I think that you do a lot. And, you know, people don't know some of the things that you do, so I just wanted to give you your kudos this evening.
I appreciate that. Ms. Anderson, I do appreciate your office at least facilitating those calls so that we could get the information to the necessary people. Unfortunately, we will have to coordinate something. Ms. Morrow needs to meet with me to understand the demands of this community. Because under Ms. Bolden's reign in 2008 or 9, we lost 67 Newark Public School students. And with all of God's blessing, we only at 2 this year. But it's tragic when it happens. Don't want to point any one finger at any one person. However, when we can avoid some situations, we need to. We had a very rude awakening with Mr. Francois' family, the student from Barringer, and unfortunately, Mr. Neal had to happen, and we need to pay some extra attention at Westside. And before I get into that, I just want to say 2 other things. In terms of education in this district right now, it is happening in some buildings, and in other buildings, it is not happening at all. It unfortunately is not happening in other buildings because we have hired staff, teachers in particular, who are not sensitive to the urban needs. And you have to be sensitive to the urban needs to come into this community. This is not New York, this is not Baltimore, this is not Boston, this is not Chicago, this is not Detroit, this is Newark. And we have our own and special ills here. I unfortunately am leaving UMD&J just about 15 minutes ago, Ms. Anderson, there have been 3 other people assaulted Westside High School tonight. We assaulted a 59-year-old man and 2 students. 1 student was left unconscious on South Orange Avenue and South 16th Street. I don't know what his mother's going to do because she's beside herself right now. She can't even give the hospital necessary information because she can't pull it together. And that has to be a part of Ms. Morrow's office outreach. We are going to have to partner with victims' crimes and be in those places when parents need us to be there. That's what we pay her $145,000 for. We need to understand what community liaison means, as well as those in the school who are, quote unquote, supposed to be community liaison. Your job doesn't end at 5 p.m., not in Newark, New Jersey. It's 24/7, particularly when it comes to dealing with our children. I will take the criticism, because I get that. I don't have a problem. But I walk the walk and I walk the talk. And I do the job that's necessary. I come to this mic because I have to for my community. But I do the work that I have to do because I love these children, the good, the bad, and the ones in between. Now, those children today that assaulted these young people, that assaulted this young man, need to be dealt with. And unfortunately, your staff at Westside High School doesn't understand that. My mother teaches there. And 2 months ago, I said, if something happens to my mother, it'd be the worst day for Newark Public Schools ever. Because I will stand in front of Westside High School with the press every day until something is done. Now, my mother has respect from those students in the building because they know when my mother comes in that building, and others, that there's love. But they know when those other folks come in there, it's a paycheck. Because at 2:40, they out the door. I need to know why the students at Westside High School every Wednesday get out at 1 o'clock. What is that about? They're not learning nothing Monday through Friday. They don't need to be going home at 1 o'clock. Who came up with that brilliant, dumb idea? Ms. Anderson, when there are altercations in the building, this is at the very least, I'm going to have you demand of your principal and your vice principals. Because I've been there on several incidents. When a young lady was jumped on South 12th Street, Ms. Anderson, it was myself that was standing between her and 40 students. Myself, until the county police got there. Do you know where your administrators were? They were standing on the steps in front of the school watching. See, I will put my life on the line for anyone. Don't have a problem with that. Don't care who it is. But I put myself in the mother's position as I know you can. If I see a child being attacked, an adult being attacked, I'm jumping in the mode. That might be my grandmother. That might be my father. That might be my daughter or my son. I'm not going to let harm come if I'm standing there. But your staff at Westside High School have had children robbed in the building and refused to allow Newark police to make arrests. I'm telling you a fact, because my next door neighbor, Mr. Jackson, just happened to be the last name, is getting ready to sue Newark Public Schools because of that. The Neal family,
Jackson,
I'm rounding up.
Please finish up, thank you.
And the Neal family will be suing Newark Public Schools because that young man was jumped prior to Christmas twice and again on Thursday before his demise 48 hours later. Ms. Anderson, if the administration at Westside High School, and I know them, trust me, and I understand you have some kind of feelings for the principal, she can't handle the building, and neither can the VPs. And it is time, right now, today, before something more major happens at that building, because I'm telling you they selling drugs, I'm telling you they recruiting for gangs, this is a fact in that building. The staff is afraid of them. They stay in the office all day long. I dare you, and I know you'll do it, but I don't really mean it in that fashion, but your mother, go in there with your mother hat on. Please don't tell them you coming, and watch, you will be so appalled, you'll shut the building down for me. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Retha Breedlove.
Retha Breedlove, 405 Littleton Avenue, Newark, 07103. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I'm a parent of a student at the Bruce Street School here in Newark. Not too long ago, I held a position at a medical facility in Livingston. The position was that one of a very significant one. I worked in a department called the Speech and Hearing / Craniofacial Department. My position was patient liaison. My job responsibility was to coordinate communications between patients and insurance providers in an effort to help patients attain and maximize their insurance benefits and meeting their medical needs. This job was important as patients were incapable of doing it themselves due to their condition of having speech impediments, hearing impediments, as well as not being able to hear at all. Why do I bring this up? Well, when you look at Ms. Yvette Gonzalez, who once held a position as parent liaison at Bruce Street School, her job was that of a significant one. She used to hold classes in regards to sign language, and she used to provide support to families who needed that extra help in communicating with their children. As it is important for a medical facility to have a patient liaison, so should it be in an educational setting, that there should be a parent liaison, especially for children of special needs. As a parent of a student of the Bruce Street School, I ask, how do you not have a parent liaison for children of special needs? And I'm asking tonight that you please reinstate Ms. Yvette Gonzalez as parent liaison of the Bruce Street School. Thank you.
Thank you. Syed Boone.
My name is Zaid, and I will recite our holy book, the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المحجوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. And my name is Zaid.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. And my name is Zaid. Because I love to recite. Because I celebrate the Eid celebration. And I want others to.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was so wonderful. Thank you so much. Naima Abdullah.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, which actually means with the name of God, most beneficent, most merciful. I thank you very much for this opportunity to come before you. My 6-year-old, we asked him to come and spend actually 3 minutes to recite, but he's gotten shy. And the reason why is because as Muslims, this is what we do. We teach our children to the highest level of education. And we also teach them to memorize our holy book, the Quran, from the cradle to their grave. This is what we teach. And one of the reasons why we're asking for the Eid holidays to be observed in your public schools in Newark is because we all know that for those of us who know anything about, who practice faith or study religion, that Prophet Abraham, what you call Ibrahim, is the father of the majority of religions, Judaism, Christianity, and as well as Islam. And if we can observe the holidays of the other faiths and not observe the holidays of the Islamic faith, then how fair is that when we say that our prophet is the same prophet, which is Abraham? That's a very important point that I wanted to establish here. But you know, I had some things written down and all that to talk about, but when I'm hearing these complaints about the Newark school system, boy, oh boy, I'm getting a headache, my stomach is hurting, and I mean, it's a good thing that we want our children out of school if this is true, I don't know. But if these type things are true, then listen, please take my child out of school for 2 days during the Eid holidays. You know, that's very deserving to them as it is to all the other children and parents of faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final speaker this evening, Imam Shakur Abdul Rahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much. Just real briefly, I think that we all would like to have universal inclusion and not exclusion. The Eads, the Islamic holidays, what they present for all students to know and to understand is individual perseverance, community activity and involvement, sharing, sacrifice, obeying parents, communication between parent or parents and child, fairness, justice. These are all inclusive principles within the Eid al-Fitr as well as Eid al-Adha. And it would be a great learning experience for all students, regardless of their faith. These are, again, basic universal principles that we, as mature adults, should want to see our youth attain, develop, and have instilled in them. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, narrate from me, even if it be one sentence. And then in another narration, he said, Innamal ahmalu bin niyati wa innama likulli imri'in ma nawa. That surely actions are but by intention, and every person shall have what he or she intends. So we pray that you, the board, move to have these holidays placed in the school system as the other holidays are. I thank you so much. Please have a blessed day. Peace.
Thank you. Ms. Gregory,
Yes,
I know you weren't here, but let me just say this. It's very unusual for us to call speakers after we have completed the list. But what did happen this evening, our meeting went much more quickly than it usually does, and based on that, I'm basically taking the prerogative of the chair to let a few of the speakers speak who were at the beginning of the list and were not here when their names were called. So, Ms. Gregory, you would be the final speaker this evening.
thank you, Madam Chair. I actually had an emergency, so I got here as soon as I could. My topic is the American Collegiate Test, also known as the ACT. And let me give my name for the record, Deborah Smith Gregory, 800 South 11th Street, a retired educator. So I'm speaking from the educational point of view, suggesting to the board that the ACT is used for diagnostic purposes in grade 7 and 8, that is the Explore test, and that course offerings are provided for the ACT test with test-taking strategies in grades 9, 10, and 11. Treat the American Collegiate Test as the college entrance exam that it is. It can be part of the extended learning time. Since the district has decided that this is going to be the test, and it has, because I include myself in the district as a stakeholder, we have purchased this test. We need to implement it the correct way. There are surrounding cities and suburban areas who have for-pay test-taking workshops offered by Huntington and Sylvan, and I'm not suggesting that we spend more money, but I am suggesting that we provide professional development around the ACT for our educators so that they may use the results more effectively, that they may use the smart boards to help with the test, and that since there were 470 of them installed, and that they are used so that this 16-page test report can be used accordingly. In addition to that, I suggest that we host information sessions for parents around how to really read this test and what the scores mean. And then finally, I am requesting either, I used the word before portfolio, so I'm going to use another word, a chart, a graph, a flyer, a slide that shows what are the schools in the Newark Public School System, what does that look like now, and that would include the co-located schools, our traditional public schools, and our public charter schools. Since there have been so many changes and more coming, I think that it is only fair and equitable that the community be informed in a way, in a physical way, not just talked about. I know that I used to know all of the schools and where they are and whose school, what school was in what building, and now that is not the case. I think that parents and the community should know, what does that new portfolio look like? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. At this time, I just want to say a couple of things in response to speakers. First, again, on the issue of incorporating the Eads into the Newark Public Schools calendar. It may seem that the board is inactive on this. We have expressed our support. We do have protocols and processes that we go through, and we are actually having a meeting later in the week of our legal committee where we will, this will be one of the items on our agenda. So while it may appear that we are not moving, we are moving in the way that we have to move internally as a board. In addition, the other thing I'd like to say is that, no, Superintendent Anderson, no, definitely, go right ahead.
We also expressed at the business meeting, for those who weren't present, our thanks for your commitment and service and passion for this issue, and explained that the board is proceeding on their process regarding a resolution, and for us, the calendar is negotiated every year in partnership with at least 4 unions. That process begins now and typically ends, no later than mid-May. And so it's not one group we need to engage, it's many, and so those are things that we are doing. But that's typically the arc of it, and we did express our commitment to having those conversations as part of the overall calendar process, which does have a couple steps, but wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you, Superintendent Anderson. The other thing that I would like to say is that a number of people have brought before us this evening issues of great concern. However, those issues are personnel issues, and we do not deal with the personnel issues in a public forum. It's just not a proper or legal thing for us to do. So, but thank you, and I know that it takes a lot of courage for any employee to come forward with, and speak publicly. So, thank everyone who came out this evening.
On that point as well, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, and we certainly will follow up, and as the chair points out and is stated at the beginning of these meetings, there are very particular specific legal pieces that we must uphold on personnel, and we will follow up. Those things occur, backstage. But thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a response to public comment? Mr. Lewis? No. Ms.
Yeah,
Mathias?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Lewis, response to public comment?
Yes, I'm sorry. One thing I wanted to ask the superintendent request, the superintendent, if Ms. Katz could reach out to Mr. Wilson and see his issue about special education with his child, see what services that his child needs, and if we could assist him in any way, seeing if we do have the services in the district. I know he had been reaching out consistently. He's been consistent with it.
Definitely.
So I wanted to just make sure that we follow up with him on
We
that.
will, Mr. T, who is responsible for that school, and Dr. Katzman are both present, and I believe they've even scheduled the fall as we've been sitting here. So part of the reason why we have our senior team present is so that some of those real-time follow-up can occur right here, right now.
Also, maybe we could get this question, this answer from the superintendent. I know we've been trying to understand the branding of the district. I know that the branding have changed. I know that someone have been responsible for branding the new district. And to date, we still don't have a new brand. I just asking Superintendent, when will we see the new brand, just so we know what's your vision? I know it's not you who's responsible for doing the branding, but I know it's you that could put the fire under the person to make sure the branding is done. So I just want to know if you have a date for us, or when can we potentially see that happen?
It's a good question, and one we would want to receive feedback from this board and others to ensure that it reflects, hopefully, our vision. So you've asked for a timeline, and I think it's a fair request, so we will definitely make sure you get that.
I also wanted to...
Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry, is this in response to, because we're not on old and new business yet, so is this in response to public participation?
Yes, because also Mr. Linda Brown brought up the high school applications. I wanted just to echo and agree with Mr. Brown. I was at actually 2 different churches over the week, and they announced children being accepted to high schools, and I thought they was going to say one of our high schools, and it was outside high school, St. Pat's, St. Mark's, St. Benedict's, and I just wanted to, tell this, that's the same thing I was talking about, these schools getting a head start of us, getting our kids before we're able to get them. They're good schools, but I think that we also have to compete to keep our children in district.
I agree, and part of what we're doing this year, which I shared previously, is also supporting some of our comprehensive high schools, that when students don't get into schools of choice, they leave, as we saw in our recent data presentation, they leave the district entirely. So what we're trying to do through our high school process this year is give some more support and allow more of our district schools to compete so that we can retain our students. And, eventually we'll get to the point where we can do it earlier and earlier, but those things are hard to balance. But I totally agree with your basic point. We need to be not only that, but when high schoolers feel like they're choosing a school as opposed to being assigned a school, they're far more likely to succeed. So we're taking steps in that direction, and I think we'll, make strides, and we'll continue to work at it.
Okay.
Ms. Mathias?
This is in response to the Westside High School situation. I know for several months since the beginning of the school year, parents, community members have been coming to the mic talking about the situation that is apparently increasing over there, and if the board can get some kind of feedback, plan of action for what's going to be done, because anytime we're losing children, and someone who was assaulted 2 times prior to now having lost his life is incredibly hurtful. So I think this board needs to get a plan of action, a follow-up, something on what is actually going to be done at Westside High School.
Yep, we definitely, the concerns are duly noted. We all share them, and appreciate the request.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Jeffries.
I had a few. Thank you very much. Thank the members of the community for their feedback. As the chair said, we, I think, stand in full support of the Muslim community in terms of making sure that Islamic holidays are recognized and respected on the same basis as our other major religions, Christianity and Judaism. So we look forward to following up on the district on that. I had a couple questions arising out of some of the other points that folks raised. Both Mr. Brown and Mr. Williamson raised some issues in terms of classrooms with long-term subs, and I know that's come up in the past. I think it'd be great if the board can get an update from the district on that, the extent to which we have classrooms with long-term subs, which is, I know, something the district is working very hard to make sure we have a highly qualified, certified teacher in every classroom. But I personally would like a bit more grounding in that, given that we've heard about some concerns from another parents on that. Mr. Williamson, Mr. Brown also raised a very important issue in terms of a preschool kid being released to somebody who wasn't their parent. And as a father myself, that's just unconscionable. So there may be individual issues that can't be shared with the public, that may be personnel issues, but to the extent in private, we can get an update on that and whatever we can share publicly so that parents can feel rest assured that their kids will only be released to appropriate people would be great. Same with the issue with the parent liaison at Burnett Street School. Obviously, we've got to make sure we can communicate to our constituents. And the last two pieces was, Bruce Street School for the deaf, I'm sorry about that, to make sure that we have, a liaison who can communicate effectively. Last two I had was the safety, as I hear oftentimes from parents and community about kids being attacked in and around the schools. We heard about the West Side issue that Ms. Mattias raised. Ms. Jackson raised very eloquently a variety of issues in terms of kids being attacked. I think it'd be great, whether it's from Mr. Freeman or whoever's appropriate, if the board can get an update on our safety situation. I know 2 years ago we had a major presentation from Mr. Freeman around safety, and we continue to seem to have some of these issues. And I also personally would follow up on the point Ms. Gregory raised, is I do think we should get an update on the portfolio, particularly over time, because we have many new school options within the district that I think we're very excited about, we're very proud about. These schools are growing, and I think it's important to have a clear picture, not only for the board, for the community, of the number of options. And also, frankly, I'm sure many of us get requests from parents about what are the options I have within the Newark Public Schools. And it'd be nice to send them to one easy place where they could see, depending on the grade level, these are the options we have within Newark Public Schools. We have new schools like Eagle Academy, we have the Young Women's Leadership Academy coming in place, we have all sorts of other programs, the early college program at Spencer, we have expanded middle school programs at Arts, American History, Science. Not all the parents may not know about that. So I think it's great we had one place where here's the menu of options we have within our district that'll get people excited so we can keep families in the district and hopefully persuade families who may be looking at other options right now that they should come back to the Newark Public Schools because we're doing great things for kids. So I think to the extent that's available on the web or some other format that is easily shareable with our parents and families, I think that'll facilitate our efforts to keep families in the district as well.
Quickly on the last one, we have various tools. We'll make sure that we share them, and to the extent that they can be improved, we're open to the feedback, so we agree. Part of the point of all of this, and I think it's also in the spirit of Mr. Lewis's question, is to ensure that we're promoting Newark Public Schools, that we're strengthening existing things, we're building new things, but we have to do that by communicating effectively. So point taken, and we look forward to working with you and others on that endeavor. On the safety issue, not a problem. I think now would be a very appropriate time in light of everything happening nationally and some local issues to have an updated presentation. I think it would be an important piece. The data on long-term subs, we can get that to you. I'm happy to say that it's down as compared to other years, but there are certain schools that have higher percentages than we would want to be in place, and that's something that we have to hold our principals accountable for. As far as the liaison at Bruce Street School, we totally agree. Obviously, we need to have an appropriate liaison there There are some challenges regarding civil service that we need to overcome, but we're very committed to doing so because you have to meet the needs of the unique student population. So clearly, we need to address that. It's just, it's not as easy as it might seem.
Thank you.
Mr. Kenny?
Madam Chair, there was a recommendation that was offered by Ms. Deborah Gregory, and I know we talked about this earlier when we were bringing ACT into the district about two things. One is the ACT being a diagnostic, as well as giving us an opportunity to get ahead of test taking and providing our young people with test taking prep. I think that's something that we need to really investigate and look into, actually implement. If young people in our district are using that test to apply to school, it's only in our best interest to make sure that we actually provide them the tools to make sure that they are competing with all the students throughout the country in terms of them receiving prep and prep tools. They should receive prep tools as well. The second thing is regarding, to build on to Shavar's point regarding providing options throughout the district, and also to build on what Dr. McCreary said at the business meeting about on-time, at-time, updated information regarding the charter schools that are entering our district, that we're leasing space to, what type of rubric do we create in order for us to get an idea of where they are, because there was one concern where there was a school that began this year, terminated their principal the same year it opened, and find themselves having a lot of students being transferred out, and we just want to get an idea if we're going to give them options and opportunities to expand. We want to know, are they meeting the mandates that you outlined within the lease agreement that you outlined in the beginning? So, that's number two. And the third one, and I know you wrote some information down regarding the issue regarding the parent, the student being called all types of vulgar words at the school level. Please investigate that. But also, I also made some observations as well. Attending basketball games, attending some of the events throughout the district, I have noticed that staff, whether there are security guards, maintenance workers, using the N-word too liberally, and whether it's a memo or something that needs to be sent out to our staff to make sure that needs to be corrected. Please send a memo out as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Kenny, that is not only a personnel issue, which I think, demands a different kind of conversation, not at the board meeting, because that's what you're saying is very serious and a very serious personnel issue. So if that's something that could be substantiated, I think it's an entirely different conversation.
Sure. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May we now move to old and new business? Believe it or not, that was not old and new business. That was response to public participation. Yes, it was a mix. Old and new business? Or have
Madam
we
Chair.
discussed everything? Yes, sir.
I'll defer to the youngest board member.
Mr. Kenny, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis and then Mr. Kenny.
Thank you, but I look better than Mr. Kenny. I want to first say good evening to Superintendent Anderson, Chair Bassfield Richardson, board members, staff, and community members. On this evening after Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, I reflect on the dream, education, equality, and justice. As I watched our first black president get sworn in for the second time, I saw tears of residents, of citizens of all race, all religions, all genders, and all generations cry because of the hope of the dream. But I couldn't help to think about the 120,000 juveniles that are incarcerated in our detention centers across the United States of America, knowing that upon their release, 75% of them will either return back to prison or end up dead on the streets. I am requesting that this district, we as a district, begin to have a serious conversation around alternative education and dropout prevention initiative to save our children. It's about time that we have the serious conversation and stop avoiding this conversation to save the children in the city of Newark who is dying each and every day. Alternative education have saved many children, but we have many more children to save. And I'm asking, with the help of this board and this superintendent, that we begin to have that serious conversation on how we're going to help the child that need guidance, who's misguided, the one without a mother, the one without a father. How can we be the second parents to make sure that they make it to tomorrow? I'm asking humbly that we have this conversation and we be bold enough to put all things on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, in listening to what you said, I believe that the matters that you just brought before us can initially be addressed through both the Curriculum Committee and the Constituent Services Committee, which you are on, and I think that would be a good place to initiate discussion and plans. I'm sorry, who else wanted to say? Do you mind, Mr. Kenny, if we could just defer to Ms. Matthias, because she wanted to make an announcement, and I had promised her and forgot. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize two schools that were recognized in our newspaper this weekend. Miller Street School, which is led by Ms. Shakira Miller Harrington, and 14th Avenue School, which is led by Allison Barrelli. Sorry. Barrelli.
Allison Barrelli.
Okay. They earned higher math and LAL scores and increased those scores at a higher rate than any other district school in their similar need category. So I just wanted to highlight and congratulate them for doing a phenomenal job. Miller Street was one of the schools that was slated to be closed last year, and through their excellent advocacy and commitment to achievement, they were able to turn around and make some incredible gains. So I just wanted to highlight them.
Thank you very much. Put your hand up.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Dr. McCreary.
Yeah.
From where I sit, I couldn't see your
No.
hand.
Okay. It came up late.
I'm
I'm going to be brief, but I would like to say something in response to what Mr. Lewis spoke about and general theme, particularly on the academic and branding front. In our last curriculum meeting, one very interesting program that was discussed and presented to the board again for work that was really successful last year was WOS, Workforce Opportunity Services, which is a program that attracts Newark residents from the age of 18 to 23 in terms of an alternative workforce experience. And so to this extent and other programs, I would say that the district can and definitely needs to do a better job of marketing ourselves, expanding programs that work, but more importantly, having a viable bridge between resources that we have, getting this out to the community so that everyone is on the same page, so that Newark can be that true alternative for individuals and families within this district. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure we all agree on that. Mr. Kenny?
Yes, I actually wanted to also just share some highlights regarding some good things that happened in the city of Newark. One, I wanted to talk about Catrice Gillespie Sykes and the principal at Speedway Elementary School for sending a busload of students down to the inauguration to celebrate the re-election and the swearing in of our President Barack Obama. Also wanted to recognize Bethany Baptist Church and the individuals who were able to get families and parents to the financial aid workshops. I know Lyndon Brown always has something going on, and Wilhelmina Holder always have something going on. It's good to see that people in the city of Newark care about education, and we need to start talking about it, we need to start highlighting it, and we need to brag about the great things that's happening in the city of Newark. The last thing is I also want to talk about is our award-winning team at Science High School. And they are competing against Bronx Science, Ridge High School, Christopher Columbus, out of Florida, Fern Creek, out of Kentucky, at the Newark Invitational, Lincoln, Douglas round robin debate. So please, if you have time on January 31st through February 1, please come out and and celebrate and to see some young people compete against each other academically and in debate. I'm sorry, let me say it again. That's Thursday, January 1, starting at about 4 o'clock, ending around 6:30, and on Friday, starting around 8:30 a.m. and ending around 4:15 p.m. Again, that's January 31st and February 1. Please attend. Please support our young people. It's going to be at Science High School. So please support as many as you can and bring people if you can. You can't yell out. You have to be in a dignified formula.
Ms. Jackson and Ms. Bailey.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Mathias.
Yes, I have a follow-up question also on the employment issue, the personnel issues rather. I know that's going to be dealt with separately, and we usually don't get individual feedback on that. But if, it's possible, there were a lot of issues and some that touched on nepotism and racial disparities. So if it's possible, we really would like to get a follow-up report on the incidents as they're resolved. And also, if appropriate, Mr. Jeffries, through the legal committee, maybe we can take a look at the district's discrimination and affirmative action policy.
Looking at the policies is no problem, but follow-up would have to either come via a committee or in closed session.
I'm sorry, which committee would that be appropriate for? Okay.
Legal committee.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Lewis?
I just have one question for the soup. What is the radius of how many students is allocated to a guidance counselor?
You're talking about how many, what's the ratio of guidance counselors to students in high schools? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can.
Because I know when I was in the school it was 492, and I wanted to, the question is, at 13th Avenue, I know it's only one guidance counselor and it's 1,100 children. So I wanted to know if there was any plans on getting extra support over at 13th Avenue for our guidance counselors.
Anyone else old or new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Now, wait a minute. One has to be the motion, one has to be the second. Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Ms. Mathias.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Ms. Mathias to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Meeting adjourned. Good night.